The dock smelled like hot metal and old dust. The overhead tarps flapped a little in the morning wind, letting strips of hard white light fall across the hull. Rian lay on his back under the control console, arms buried in a nest of wires. Sweat ran into his eyes. The plastic insulation felt soft and greasy under his fingers. He held two stripped ends together while the soldering wand warmed up in his other hand. "Hold it steady," Sela said. Her boots were planted wide on the deck above his head. He could see her ankles, the frayed edge of her pressure suit. "If that joint pops during ascent, we lose half the board." "It won't pop," he said. The soldering wand's tip went from dull to bright in a breath. He touched it to the twisted copper, fed in a thin line of solder. It smoked and spat, then flowed. The joint turned smooth and silver. Kael's voice came from the little speaker wired into the console frame. "Voltage on that line is within tolerance. Good connection." Rian let go and flexed his cramped fingers. "Told you." "Tell me after we light the booster," Sela said. She crouched, grabbed at his forearm, and hauled him out from under the console. "Come on. We're out of dark." He blinked against the light. The ship filled most of the pit, nose pointed toward the open gate. The hull was a patchwork of plates with different colors and ages. Some still showed the old Explorer lines. Most were scavenged from whatever he and Sela had dragged in over the last months. Cables ran from the ship to the dock walls. Compressors hummed. Somewhere deeper in the pit, a pump thumped in time with his pulse. "How long?" he asked. "Window starts in 3 hours," Sela said. She checked the slate in her hand, thumb flicking across the cracked screen. "We need pressure tests done in one, or we miss it." "Kael," Rian asked. "Orbital traffic is light," Kael said. "2 corporate freighters, 1 patrol skiff. Skiff's orbit takes it over us at the edge of the gap. If we are not above cloud by then, their sensors will see the plume." Rian wiped his hands on his overalls and climbed up into the cockpit. The seat was an old pilot cradle from a wrecked shuttle, bolted into a frame they had welded themselves. The harness straps were mismatched. One had a faded logo he didn't recognize. The control panel was still open, wires exposed. He pushed it back into place and latched it. The switches clacked under his fingers, familiar now. He had cleaned each one, tested each contact. He knew which ones stuck a little, which ones needed a firmer push. Air lines ran along the cockpit walls in gray and blue, clamped every half meter. One of them had a dull patch where they had spliced in a new section. He tried not to look at it too long. Sela climbed in behind him, into the second seat. The cockpit was narrow, her shoulder pressed against his. The smell of machine oil and her sweat mixed with the old plastic of the seats. "Kael, start the cycle," she said. "Beginning cabin pressure test," Kael said. "Closing external valves." Somewhere below them, metal thumped. The hum of the dock shifted. A faint hiss started, then grew. Rian felt it in his ears before he heard it properly. The air in the cockpit grew cooler. On the panel, a little blue icon lit up. Kael's presence. Next to it, a gauge climbed, numbers ticking up. "Target is 70 kilopascals internal," Kael said. "Hold for 10 minutes." Rian watched the needle. It rose smooth and steady. 60, 65, 70. "Hold," Sela muttered. Her hand rested on the side of the seat, knuckles white. For a few seconds, everything seemed fine. The hull creaked softly as it took the pressure. Rian's ears popped. Then he heard it. A thin hiss, sharper than the general noise, like sand spilling through a narrow crack. "Leak," he said. "Confirming," Kael said. On the panel, the pressure number stopped climbing. It dipped, internal pressure dropping, rate 0.5 kilopascal per minute and rising. Sela swore under her breath. "Where?" Rian unlatched his harness and pushed himself up. The hiss got louder when he moved toward the rear bulkhead. He ran his hand along the airline there, feeling for the cold breath of escaping air. "Back left," he said. "Near the feed junction." Sela squeezed past him, dropped to her knees, and pressed her ear to the wall. "Yeah, there." "Shutting down test," Kael said. "Venting cabin to baseline." The hiss changed tone, then faded. Rian felt the pressure ease. His skin prickled. "We don't have time for this," Sela said. She slapped the wall once, like she wanted to hit the leak itself. "That junction was fine yesterday." "It was fine at ground," Kael said. "Thermal expansion under pressure may have changed the alignment. The recycled gasket is likely the failure point." Rian frowned. He pictured the junction, a T-shaped metal piece, 3 hoses clamped onto it. The gasket had been from an old water recycler, cut to fit. "We can cut a new gasket," he said. Sela checked the slate again. "We cut a new gasket, we run another full test, we miss the gap. Patrol skiff sees us, they ask questions. They see Kael's signature. We're dead or in a pit." Rian looked at the panel. The gauges were dark now. The blue icon still glowed. How bad is .5 kilopascal per minute? He asked. That was at the start of the leak, Kael said. If the material continues to deform under stress, rate will increase. In vacuum, any leak is fatal without repair. I know that, Rian said. His voice came out sharper than he meant. He rubbed his thumb along the faint birthmark on his wrist, a habit he barely noticed anymore. How bad is it really? There was a pause. He imagined Kael running numbers in silence. At the measured rate, in vacuum, you would lose breathable pressure in approximately 4 hours, Kael said. That assumes no increase. That is an unsafe assumption. 4 hours is more than enough to reach orbit and dock, Rian said. Unless the rate doubles, or the gasket tears fully under vibrational load, Kael said. I cannot change those probabilities. Sela stood up, shoulders tight. We are not flying with a known leak. I'm not dying in some kid's patched tin can because we were in a hurry. Rian felt heat climb his neck at the word kid, but he let it pass. He looked at the wall where the leak had been. He pictured the junction again, the hoses, the clamps. What if we don't use a gasket? He said slowly. What if we sleeve it? Sela frowned. Explain. He climbed out of the cockpit and dropped down onto the pit floor. The air down here was hotter, the smell of oil thicker. He walked to the parts shelf, started digging through a crate of hoses. His hands knew what they were looking for. A certain flexibility, a certain thickness. He found a length of clear hose with a yellow stripe. It had once carried coolant. The inside was smooth. The outside had a woven reinforcement. He held it up. We cut a short piece, slide it over the junction and both hoses. Double clamp each side. The leak stays inside the sleeve. Even if the gasket's bad, the pressure pushes the sleeve tight. Sela dropped down beside him. She took the hose, bent it in her hands, tested its give. Rated for coolant, not air. Coolant ran hotter than we will, Rian said. And higher pressure. I checked the markings when I pulled it. It can take it. Kael spoke. The hose is from a corporate shuttle coolant loop. Original rating 20 bar at 400 Kelvin. We will operate at less than 1 bar and 300 Kelvin. Material degradation from age is unknown, but margins are large. Sela shot a look toward the speaker. You could have said that earlier. You did not ask, Kael said. Rian took the hose back and grabbed a cutter. We don't open the junction. We don't lose time on a new gasket. We just wrap it. Sela hesitated. He could see the calculations in her face. Time, risk, patrol or vacuum. How long to fit it, she asked. 10 minutes, Rian said. 15 if the clamps fight. Plus a shortened pressure test, Kael said. We can do a ramp to 70 kilopascal and hold for 3 minutes. It will not prove long-term stability, but it will show gross failure. Sela blew out a breath. We're trusting your numbers, Ghost. My numbers are not the variable, Kael said. The material is. Rian cut a piece of hose about the length of his hand. He sliced it down one side so it could open. Sela grabbed 4 clamps from the bin and a wrench. They climbed back into the ship, then down through the access hatch to the narrow crawl space behind the cockpit. The airline ran along the bulkhead here, secured with old clamps. The junction sat in a nest of foam and tape. Rian peeled the tape back. The gasket where the side hose met the junction was damp, a faint frost around it from the escaping air. See? He said quietly. Sela grunted. Yeah, that would have gone bad under real load. He opened the slit hose and slipped it over the junction and both attached hoses, making a wide collar. The plastic creaked a little but did not crack. Clamps, he said. She handed him one. He slid it over the sleeve, positioned it near the edge of the junction, and tightened it until the metal bit into the plastic. The screw squealed. The hose bulged slightly. They worked in silence. Second clamp on that side. 2 on the other. His fingers ached from the awkward angle. Sweat dripped off his nose onto the metal. Kael, Sela said, voice muffled in the cramped space. You seeing this? Visual feed is limited, Kael said. But based on audio and your descriptions, the sleeve should contain any minor leaks. You have introduced additional failure points at each clamp. We know, Rian said. He gave the last clamp a final turn. But we also have more metal keeping it together now. They backed out of the crawl space. Rian sealed the hatch and wiped his hands on his overalls again. They were streaked with grime. Run it, Sela said. They climbed back into their seats. The harness straps felt rough against Ryan's neck. He pulled them tight anyway. Beginning second pressure test, Kael said. Target 70 kilopascal. Hold for 3 minutes. The hiss started again, softer this time. The gauge needle climbed. 50, 60, 70. Rian held his breath without meaning to. He stared at the numbers. They wobbled a little, then settled. Timer started, Kael said. The hull creaked. A faint tick-tick came from somewhere in the walls. Rian tried not to imagine the sleeve bursting, the clamps snapping off like teeth. He glanced sideways at Sela. Her jaw was clenched. Her cybernetic eye glowed faintly in the dim cockpit. What if it fails up there, he asked. Then we fix it up there, she said. Or we die up there. Same as we die down here if we miss this window and the wrong people start asking why I've got a ghost in my dock. He nodded. It was simple when she said it like that. Live with one risk to avoid another. That was most of life out here. Pressure holding, Kael said. Minor fluctuations within expected range. 2 minutes remaining. Rian let out his breath slowly. He felt his heartbeat in his throat. He thought of the wreck fields, of all the ships that had not made it. Torn hulls, blackened metal, air long gone. Kaeloids, he said. If this was your body, would you fly it? There was a longer pause this time. Yes, Kael said, with caution. I would monitor the junction continuously and plan for rapid repair, but I would fly it. Why? Rian asked too. Widest. Because the window will not open again for 41 days, Kael said. Because in 41 days, orbital surveillance may be denser. Because Sela's dock may be compromised at any time. Because your pursuers do not pause. Rian swallowed. You mean Verdan? I mean the system that serves him, Kael said. Individually, their agents are limited. Together they are persistent. 30 seconds, Sela said, watching the gauge. Still holding. Rian felt something loosen in his chest. Fear did not go away, but it shifted. It became something he could carry. He thought of the desert outside, already getting hot. The broken ships half buried in sand. The life he knew, small and hard and predictable in its own way. Then he thought of the sky above that, and the things Kael had shown him in old recordings. Stars like dust, ships moving between them. 3 minutes, Kael said. Pressure stable, no measurable loss. The sleeve is holding. Sela let out a sharp breath, almost a laugh. She slapped Rian's shoulder once. There, your ugly little trick works. It's not ugly, he said. It's good enough. She looked at him, then nodded once. Good enough to bet our lives on? He met her eyes. Yeah. She sat back in her seat and tightened her harness. Then we fly. They rolled the ship out in the dark. The stars were still bright. The eastern horizon just had a thin gray line to it. The air was cold enough that Rian's breath showed in little puffs when he spoke. Sand crunched under the sled runners as they dragged the hull across the hardpan. Keep it straight, Sela said. Her voice came out low and even. She walked beside the nose, one gloved hand on the metal, guiding it. If we gouge the surface, we'll catch on ignition. I see it, Rian said, his shoulders already burned from the pull bar. The ship felt heavier than it had in the pit, like the night had settled on it. The hull scraped over a shallow ridge and the whole frame shuddered. He heard something loose rattle inside. He flinched. It's the tool rack, Kael said in his ear. Nothing structural. You could say nothing and save time, Rian muttered. I am trying to manage your anxiety. Sela snorted. Manage it quieter. We're almost at mark. They had painted a crude circle on the hardpan days before, using white mineral from a dry creek bed. Now it glowed faintly under the stars. Rian dragged the ship until its landing skids lined up with the circle's inner edge. His arms trembled when he let go of the bar. Rest, Sela said. She was breathing harder too, though she tried to hide it. Her cybernetic eye glowed faint amber in the dim. We've got 10 minutes before the window opens. Rian wiped sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. The air felt colder now that he'd stopped moving. The ship loomed over him, patched plates and welded seams catching the faint light. Its nose was blunt and ugly. The ascent booster lay on a flat sled nearby, a long cylinder with scoring along its sides from some old use. Kael, Sela said. Confirm orbit traffic. There was a small pause. 2 corporate freighters on scheduled descent, Kael said. 1 patrol cutter on a survey arc to the south. 1 private shuttle in geosync over the city. Your gap opens in 8 minutes, 20 seconds. It will last 3 minutes, 15. And if we're late? Rian asked. Then we are a bright, unlicensed plume on a clear board, Kael said. They will see us. Sela slapped a hand against the booster. Then we're not late. Rian, help me swing this under. They worked in silence for a while. The booster's cold metal bit through his gloves. They levered it off the sled, balanced it on a short stack of scavenged bricks, and inched it under the ship's belly until the mounts lined up with the brackets Rian had welded there 2 nights before. Looks crooked, Rian said. It is within tolerance, Kael said. Sela crouched to check the alignment. Her knees cracked. Bolts. Rian scrambled to the crate, grabbed the heavy bolts and the ratchet. His fingers fumbled with the threads. The metal was stiff from the cold. He forced the first bolt through the bracket and into the booster's hardpoint, then cranked until his shoulders screamed. 3 minutes, Kael said calmly. Rian's hand slipped on the ratchet. His knuckles smashed into the hull. Pain flared. He hissed through his teeth. Focus, Sela said. She was on the other side, driving in her own set of bolts. Her movements were quick and sure. You can bleed after we're up. He grunted and kept turning. The bolt seated. He moved to the next. The metal groaned as the booster pulled tight against the hull. 2 minutes 30, Kael said. Patrol cutter is altering course slightly. Still south of us. Rian finished the last bolt and dropped the ratchet. His hands shook. He wiped them on his overalls. There was a thin smear of blood on his right hand now. Straps, Sela said. They took the wide, composite straps and looped them over the booster, hooking them into the side lugs. Sela leaned her full weight on the ratchet handle, tightening until the strap sang. Rian did the same on his side. Good, she said. She straightened slowly, hand on her lower back for a second. That's as married as they're getting. Rian stepped back. The ship and booster together looked wrong, like two different animals welded together. He swallowed. Time? Sela asked. 1 minute 40, Kael said. We should be aboard. Sela's jaw tightened. Right. Helmets on. No more talk out here. She swung up the side ladder with practiced ease. Rian followed, boots slipping once on a dusty rung. His heart thudded hard in his chest. The hatch was stiff, but moved when Sela put her shoulder into it. They ducked inside. The air smelled of sealant and metal, and the faint sourness of their own sweat from the last days. Sela dogged the hatch behind them. The world outside cut off with a dull clang. Inside, the only light came from a small strip over the control panel and the dim green of the life support indicator. Rian dropped into the pilot seat. The padding was thin. The harness straps were rough against his neck. His hands found the armrests and gripped them. Sela slid into the second seat to his right, facing a cluster of gauges and the small secondary screen they had salvaged. She moved with the ease of someone who had done this before, even if the ship was a wreck. Strap in, she said. Tight. He pulled the harness over his shoulders, clicked it into the buckle, and yanked the adjustment tabs until the straps dug into his chest. His breath felt shallow. Kael, Sela said. Here, the AI said. His voice came from a small speaker Rian had wired into the panel. A faint blue icon pulsed on the cracked display. Running final checks. Rian licked dry lips. Pressure? Holding, Kael said. Your patch is stable. Oxygen feed nominal. Structural strain monitors active. Booster ignition line green. Guidance mostly green. Mostly? Sela said sharply. I have no way to test the third stage cutoff valve under load, Kael said. We will discover its behavior in flight. Sela closed her eyes for a second, then opened them. We'll take what we get. Window? Rian asked. 30 seconds to gap, Kael said. Patrol cutter vector is still favorable. They will be on the far side of their arc when we light. Rian stared at the small forward viewport. It showed only blackness and the faint curve of the hull. No sky, no stars, just the inside of their own nose. His hands shook on the armrests. He tried to breathe slow. This is it, he thought. No more desert. No more walking the same dunes. Either sky or nothing. Rian, Kael said quietly. You will feel high acceleration. It will be unpleasant. You must keep your hands off the manual controls until I say. I know, Rian said. His voice came out thinner than he liked. Sela glanced at him. You throw up. Keep it in your throat until we're clear, she said. I'm not cleaning it out of the vents. He let out a short, nervous laugh. You've done this before? Licensed launches, yeah, she said. She checked her straps again, then gripped her armrests. Never in a junker like this. So listen to Kael and don't fight the ship. 10 seconds to gap, Kael said. Booster ignition in 15. Mark. Rian's heart hammered. He could hear his own pulse in his ears. The cabin seemed to shrink around him. 9, Kael said. 8, 7. Rian swallowed hard. He pictured the patrol cutter, somewhere up there, its sensors sweeping. He pictured the freighters, the city lights, all of it above the thin ceiling of sky he had only ever seen from below. 3, Kael said. 2, 1, ignition. The world slammed into him. There was a roar like the desert itself was tearing open. The ship jumped under him, then pressed him back into the seat so hard he couldn't move. His chest crushed. Air punched out of his lungs. The noise filled everything. The cabin shook so violently he thought the hull would rip. The harness dug into his shoulders like knives. His vision narrowed. Hold, Kael said. His voice cut through the noise, calm and clear. Acceleration at 5 Gs. Climbing. Rian tried to breathe. His chest barely moved. He forced a small sip of air in through his nose. His cheeks pulled back. His teeth felt heavy. Something banged somewhere aft. A shrill alarm began to beep on Sela's panel. What is that? She gasped. Booster gimbal variance, Kael said. Compensating. The ship lurched sideways, then steadied. The shaking got worse. A new vibration started under Rian's feet. A high, angry buzz. Feels wrong, Sela grunted. Feels like it's tearing itself apart. It is within the envelope, Kael said. Barely. Altitude 4 kilometers. Velocity rising. Rian's stomach tried to climb into his throat. He clenched his jaw. The pressure on his body grew. His hands were numb now, but he realized he was still gripping the armrest as hard as he could. A different alarm screeched. Red light flashed on the panel. Talk to me, Sela said. Her voice sounded strained, thin under the force. Temperature spike in booster casing, Kael said. We are exceeding design. Adjusting fuel mix. The roar changed pitch, a little lower. The vibration shifted. The ship rattled like a loose can. Any sign of them? Sela managed. Patrol cutter has detected an anomaly, Kael said. They are lifting from their pad. Vector is poor. They will not have line of sight lock until we are near max atmo. Rian's head spun. He tried to imagine what that meant and couldn't. The only thing that felt real was the crushing weight and the shaking. There was a loud crack from behind them. For a second, the ship seemed to sag, then stiffen again. Strap 3 on the booster just failed, Kael said. Load is shifting to the remaining mounts. We are still attached. Recommend no sudden maneuvers. Like we have room for any, Sela muttered. Sweat ran down the side of her face, catching on her jaw. Rian's vision blurred at the edges. The forward viewport showed a faint hint of blue now, then darker. He realized they were passing through the upper air. The roar outside sharpened. The shaking changed faster, almost like a vibration in his bones. Altitude 12 kilometers, Kael said. Atmospheric density dropping. Acceleration easing slightly. Rian felt it. The weight on his chest lessened a little. He dragged in a bigger breath. It burned. How's our plume look? Sela asked. Bright, Kael said, but short-lived. They are trying to classify us. They have no matching profile. Patrol cutter is climbing too steep. Their thrust vector is inefficient. Good, Sela said. Her hands were white on the armrests. Let them waste fuel. Rian tried to lift one hand. It came up a few centimeters, shaking, then fell back. Kael, he rasped. We going to make orbit? We will know in 20 seconds, Kael said. Prepare for separation. The crushing force eased more. The roar shifted down. Rian's stomach lurched again. Booster burnout in 3, Kael said. 2, 1, cut off. The roar vanished. For a half-second there was silence and a strange lightness, like the world had dropped away. Then a heavy bang shook the cabin as explosive bolts fired. The ship jolted. Separation, Kael said. We are clean. Minimal contact with the booster casing. Rian felt like he was falling. His insides turned over. His body floated against the straps, then settled as a gentler push came on. Second stage burn, Kael said. Main engine online. A new, steadier thrust pressed Rian back into the seat. Nothing like the first slam, but enough to pin him. The ship's shaking calmed to a low vibration. Rian could breathe now. He dragged air in and out in short, sharp pulls. His hands tingled as blood returned. How's the patrol? Sela asked. Lagging, Kael said. They have us on sensors now, but our angle is poor for them. They would need to overburn to reach an intercept. They are not authorized to waste that much fuel on an unregistered launch without confirmation of threat. So they'll just watch, Sela said. For now, Kael said. Altitude 70 kilometers. We are almost clear. Rian blinked sweat out of his eyes and forced himself to look at the small side display. It showed a crude line climbing away from a circle that was their world. Numbers ticked up. It felt unreal. Rian, Kael said, look forward. He did. The blue had thinned to a deep, dark purple, then to black. Stars appeared, sharp and cold. And below, through the forward viewport, the curve of the planet began to show. It was not how he had imagined it. From the ground, the desert felt endless. From here, he saw the scars. Vast pale bands cut across the surface, where old orbital strikes had burned. Dark circles marked crater lakes that had long since dried. The green, where it existed, clung to thin lines along riverbeds, and a few stubborn patches near the coasts. The rest was brown and red and gray. That's Homefield, Sela said quietly. Her voice had lost its hard edge. Ugly from up here, too. Rian's throat tightened. He pressed his forehead lightly against the harness strap, eyes on the curve of land and cloud. He thought of the wrecks scattered across those sands, the caravans, the people who would never see this view. Orbit insertion in 10 seconds, Kael said. Prepare for microgravity. The main engine cut. The gentle push on Rian's body vanished. His stomach flipped. For a moment he felt weightless. Then the harness held him in place. A stray bolt floated up from under the panel, spinning slowly in the air. "Welcome to orbit," Kael said. There was the faintest hint of something like satisfaction in his voice. "We are currently untagged. Patrol cutter has filed a report and is returning to its pattern." Sela let out a long breath. It sounded almost like a laugh. "We're actually here," she said, "against all sense." Rian watched the floating bolt, then the planet again. The desert curved away into night. Little pricks of light showed the city and a few outposts. It all looked small. "What now?" he asked. "Now we move before someone up here starts asking questions," Sela said. She flexed her fingers, grimaced at the stiffness. "Kael?" "I have a trajectory to the outer beacon," Kael said. "From there we can make our first FTL jump toward the mining moon where Marojex works. I will feed the course to the drive." Rian swallowed. "First jump," he said softly. "Yes," Kael said. "You have left your world. Next you will leave its sky." Rian took one more look at Homefield. The scars, the little lights. Then he set his back against the seat and closed his fingers around the armrests again. "Do it," he said. The kick when the booster let go felt like the ground dropping out from under him. One moment there was that steady crush in his chest, the roar and rattle coming up through the seat. Then a sharp clunk ran through the hull. His straps went slack for a breath, and the noise cut off. His stomach tried to float. "Booster separation confirmed," Kael said in his ear. His voice sounded too calm, like they were back in the pit. "We have main engine idle. Attitude holding." Rian's hands were locked around the armrests. His fingers hurt. He forced them to open. The straps pressed over his shoulders and hips, the only thing telling his body which way was down. Sela let out a short, harsh laugh beside him. It sounded more like a cough. "Still alive," she said. "That's something." Rian swallowed. His mouth was dry. The cabin felt too quiet. He could hear a faint hum from the system Sela had wired, a soft ticking somewhere behind the panel as metal cooled. He turned his head toward the viewport. The cracked corner of the plexiglass caught the light. Beyond it, there was no sand, no sky. Just black, deep and clean. It made his chest tighten. "Kael," he said. His voice came out thin. "I am here," the AI said. The little blue icon glowed on the dead corner of the console they'd patched, steady and bright. "You can look." Rian realized he had been staring at the frame, not through it. He made himself focus past the faint scratches and the spiderweb crack. Homefield filled the window. It was bigger than he had ever imagined, a curve of tan and red, rolling away until it vanished into the black. The desert he knew was just one patch in a wide sweep of color. There were faint bands of cloud, thin and dirty white, curling along the edge. Far off, near the limb, he thought he saw a hint of darker green, but it might have been his eyes playing tricks. His breath hitched. He leaned forward as far as the straps allowed. "That's all of it?" he said. Sela shifted, her harness creaking. "Looks smaller than I thought," she said, but her voice was soft. He could see her reflection in the viewport, wide-eyed. "It is approximately 12,000 kilometers in diameter," Kael said, "within standard range for a habitable world of its class." Rian barely heard the numbers. His gaze caught on a dark smear across the tan. It was not a cloud. It was too straight. "What's that?" he asked. "Zooming," Kael said. The viewport did not change, but a small section of the console flickered to life, showing a grainy, magnified view. The old screen crackled, color slightly off, but the shape was clear enough. A long, jagged band of black and rust, like a wound. It cut across the desert in a rough arc. Smaller dark spots dotted the land around it. "Primary debris belt," Kael said. "Main engagement line. Final phase. Orbital bombardment intersecting with atmospheric entry vectors." Rian's throat tightened. He could see the wreck fields he knew, the one he had grown up in, as tiny dots in that smear. The pit was just a speck. The dunes where he had scavenged, the old water tower, the caravan paths, all swallowed by that long scar. "How many ships?" he asked. At peak, this system saw approximately 300 capital hulls and several thousand smaller craft, Kael said. "Most of the large debris is in decayed orbit or on the surface now. You are seeing the densest concentration." Sela let out a low whistle. "All that metal," she said, "and we scrape for pipe and wire." Rian pressed his forehead against the viewport. The plexiglass was cool. He followed the curve of the planet with his eyes. More dark patches showed, scattered across the tan. Some were round like impact basins. Others were streaks. "Those too?" he asked. "Secondary engagements. Crash sites. Some are old industrial zones, stripped and abandoned," Kael said. "The green you see near the Terminator is the last major wet zone. Population centers cluster there." Rian tried to picture the people, all the caravans, the towns he had never seen. From here they were nothing. No tents, no fences, just color and shape. "I thought the desert was everything," he said. It slipped out without him planning to. It was everything you could see, Kael said. Perspective changes with altitude. Sela snorted. He talks like a teacher, she said. He is a teacher, Rian said, still staring. The word felt strange in his mouth. He felt small, smaller than he had ever felt in the pit, even when the sandstorms came and the sky turned brown. Back then, the world had pressed down on him. Here, it fell away on all sides. He also felt something else, a lightness in his chest that did not come from the near weightless feeling. A loosening. If all of this could fit in a window, then maybe the things he feared were not as big as he thought. Or maybe they were bigger. He was not sure. Status, Sela said. Her practical tone cut through his drifting thoughts. We coasting or falling? Stable low orbit, Kael said. Apogee in 6 minutes. We need to prepare for transition. Rian pulled himself back from the window. His hands found the edges of the console. The panel they had wired last night sat in front of him, a patchwork of old switches and new toggles, labels scratched in by hand. The plastic still smelled faintly of burned dust. Transition, he repeated. The jump. Yes, Kael said. FTL drive initialization in 4 minutes. We must align to the target vector before then. Rian's heart kicked up again. The calm he had felt looking at the planet thinned. Our drive is untested, Kael went on. We have run simulations, but this configuration has not performed a live jump. Nice way to say might blow up, Sela muttered. Probability of catastrophic failure is under 8%, Kael said. Comforting, she said. Rian swallowed. His palms were slick. He wiped them on his cut-off sleeves. What do I do? He asked. First breathe, Kael said. Your pulse is elevated. We need you clear. I'm clear, Rian said. It was not entirely true. His mind kept flashing back to the booster's roar, the way the hull had shuddered like it would tear apart. He pushed the memory aside. Look at the attitude indicators, Kael said. Center screen. The middle display came to life, showing a simple circle with a line through it and a small dot. Numbers ticked at the edges. That dot is our nose, Kael said. The line is the horizon. We need to align to this marker here. A small triangle blinked on the top of the circle. That is the vector to the mining moon station. Rian nodded. The numbers swam for a second, then settled. Use the rotational thrusters, Kael said. Toggle 3 for pitch, 4 for yaw. Short bursts. Rian reached for the toggles. His fingers shook. He wrapped them around the first switch and flicked it up. The ship nudged. His stomach rolled sideways. The dot on the screen drifted. Too much, Kael said. Opposite short tap. Rian tapped the switch down. The dot moved back, overshot, then eased toward the blinking triangle. Good, Kael said. Hold there. Rian let go. The switches hummed faintly under his fingers. Outside, Homefield slid slowly in the viewport. The scarred belt moved out of sight, replaced by a smoother stretch of desert. The thin clouds shifted. Vector locked, Kael said. Now we power the drive. Sela shifted in her seat. Rian heard the squeak of her harness. You sure you want to do that from up here? She asked. We could go around a bit. See the view. We have a 3-minute window before the patrol's sensor sweep intersects our orbit, Kael said. If we are still here, we will be very visible. Fine, she said. Light your ghost engine. Rian's hand hovered over a red switch with no cover. They had not found a cover that fit. He had scratched FTL beside it with a knife, the letters uneven. On my mark, Kael said. There will be a brief field distortion. You may feel disoriented. Do not unstrap. Wasn't planning to, Sela said. Rian stared at the switch. His fingers tingled. This was different from climbing into wrecks, different from welding a patch with bad goggles. Those things were dangerous, but they were familiar. This was a step into something he could not see or touch. Rientist Kael said, softer. You can do this. I will handle the calculations. You only need to follow the sequence. Rian nodded, though Kael could not see him. He thought again of the planet in the window, the long scars, the tiny green. He thought of what Kael had told him in the pit, about his parents, about the line of ships that had flown free before the oligarchs locked everything down, about a sister somewhere out there, raised in a different sky. He was very small. The ship was a patched-together shell. The drive was untested, but the idea of staying on that wounded curve below, scraping metal until he died, felt smaller now. It felt like a cage he had already stepped out of. Mark, Kael said. Rian flipped the switch. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then a low vibration started under his feet. It rose in pitch, a distant whine coming closer. The lights on the panel flickered. One of the old gauges spun, then settled. Field coils charging, Kael said. 70%, 90. Hold course. The circle on the screen wobbled, as if something were tugging at it. Rian gripped the armrests again, fighting the urge to reach for the thrusters. Do not correct, Kael said. The distortion is within tolerance. The wine became a buzz in Rian's teeth. His vision blurred at the edges. The black outside the viewport seemed to thicken, like oil. The curve of Homefield smeared, then snapped back, then smeared again. His stomach lurched, but his body did not move. It felt like falling without direction. Field at 100%, Kael said. Transition in 3, 2, 1. The world folded. That was the only way Rian could think of it later. There was no flash, no tunnel of stars like in the old vids some caravans played. The black outside twisted. The planet's curve bent in a way his mind did not like. And then everything went gray for a breath. His ears popped. His tongue tasted like metal. Then the gray cleared. The viewport showed stars, not the faint, washed-out points he had seen from the dunes. Hard, bright stars scattered across a deep, clean dark. No planet filled the window. No time curve. Just a few distant cold lights. One of them was larger, with a small pinprick beside it. Rian let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. Transition complete, Kael said. There was a note in his voice Rian had not heard before. Relief, maybe, or something close. We are in the outer approach of the Verdan 3 system. That bright object is the primary. The smaller is the mining moon station's host world. Sela blew out air between her teeth. We didn't explode, she said. I'll take it. Rian's hands were still shaking. He laughed once, a short, disbelieving sound. We're really gone, he said. He looked back at where Homefield should have been. There was nothing there but empty dark. You are not gone, Kael said. You are elsewhere. Rian watched the tiny point that was their destination. Somewhere around that little moon, a station hung. Somewhere on that station, a man like the ones in the wreck fields loaded ore and cursed his supervisors and sent money home. Somewhere far beyond that, in another system, a girl he had never met walked polished halls and spoke soft, careful words to a man who owned roots and lives. He felt the smallness again, and the lightness. Elsewhere, then, he said. All right. He tightened his straps, settled his shoulders against the seat, and set his hands on the patch controls. The office was quiet enough that Lira could hear the soft hum in the walls, cooling reels, air scrubbers, the faint pulse of the building's core systems under her feet. Lord Verdan stood by the wide window, hands loosely clasped behind his back. Axis Prime's central spire forested the view, each tower carrying his crest or one of his subsidiaries. The sky beyond was a clean, engineered blue, the color of his public feeds. The phrase isolated unrest is still correct, he said. His voice was soft, as always. We do not reward exaggeration. Lira sat on the low back chair in front of his desk. Her slate rested on her knees. Lines of text floated above it in pale gray, waiting for her edits. Her stylus hovered over one sentence. Reports from the Trass Belt suggest a coordinated element, she said. If we call it isolated and it spreads, the feeds will replay this statement for weeks. He turned his head a little. The motion was slow, measured. You are not paid to be superstitious, Lira. I'm paid to anticipate how this will look in 3 cycles, she said. She kept her tone neutral. We can soften without sounding alarmed. He studied her for a moment. His eyes were the same gray as the towers outside. Then he walked back to the desk and sat down. The chair accepted his weight with a silent shift. He laid one hand on the surface, and the embedded display woke, casting a dim light on his pale skin. Then soften, he said, but do not invite panic. The markets are already nervous about freight delays. Lira adjusted the sentence. She dragged her stylus through the word isolated, watched it vanish, then wrote in, localized and under active review. The new phrase slotted neatly into place. Localized and under active review, she read aloud. It acknowledges attention without suggesting scale. Verdan's mouth moved, not quite a smile. You see, you do not need ghosts to do your work well. She let that pass. Her other hand flicked through the feed windows at the edge of her slate. Logistics reports, security summaries, a live chart of ore tonnage from frontier systems. Along the bottom, a narrow bar of system alerts scrolled in small, patient letters. She spoke as she worked. Opening line stays the same. As stewards of stable trade in the Axis and frontier alike, we remain committed to. Stewards sounds pious, he said. This is not a sermon. Try partners. She changed it. As partners in stable trade. Better. He leaned back, eyes half-lidded. Continue. She smoothed the rest of the paragraph. Words like continued stability, predictable roots, and shared prosperity settled into the text without friction. She knew how they sounded when played over images of workers smiling in clean uniforms, Children under dome glass watching cargo ships rise. She had written those pairings herself. The bar of alerts at the bottom of her slate ticked forward. A tiny orange icon appeared for a moment, then faded to gray as the system classified it. Unregistered FTL trace. Frontier vector. Signal strength. Low. Status. Autolog. Low priority anomaly. Her eyes caught it even as her hand finished a sentence about safeguarding livelihoods on worlds like Homefield, and she stopped. Homefield is on the list, she said. You want it named. Of course. Verdan opened his eyes. They like to hear their dust has value. Her gaze flicked back to the alert. It had already moved off the visible bar. She tapped the corner of the slate and pulled up the log with 2 quick motions. The system tried to keep the main document in focus, dimming the side window, but she pushed it brighter. A small, neat entry expanded. Origin. Outer frontier. Approximate vector overlaying one of the unprofitable quadrants. No registered ship ID. No scheduled jump. The trace was weak, as if the drive had been old or poorly shielded. Her mind ran through possibilities. Smugglers. A miscalibrated beacon. A ghost echo from some old wreck finally discharging. The system's own classification made sense. There were hundreds of anomalies each cycle. Most meant nothing. But the origin timestamp lined up with the same window the latest unrest report had mentioned. A labor stoppage on a mining moon. A broken comms array. A supervisor's request for more enforcement drones. Lira, Verdan's voice cut in. You paused. She blinked the anomaly window smaller and brought the statement back to the center. Adjusting the frontier list, she said. It was not exactly a lie. She added 2 more names, spreading attention evenly. Homefield, Trask Station, and the Outer Belt colonies remain secure and productive partners in our shared future. Good. He watched her hands. You looked at an alert. She met his eyes. A low-strength FTL trace from the frontier. System flagged it as a low priority. I wanted to be sure it was not a security reroute before I mentioned specific sites. His gaze did not move from her face. And? It appears to be nothing, she said. Unregistered. Weak. Likely smuggling or equipment noise. He let the silence stretch for a few seconds. The office hum filled it. Somewhere above, a transport passed, its drive a faint, distant thrum through the structure. Smugglers are useful, he said at last. They test our nets. If they become a problem, we adjust. There is no need to dignify them with attention in a public statement. I agree, she said. She did in the narrow sense. The public did not need that detail. But her thumb marked the anomaly with a private tag before the window closed. It was a small action. One more invisible bookmark in a system full of them. She scrolled to the next paragraph. We need a line on enforcement. The unions will be listening for it. Verdan's fingers tapped once on the desk. We are not at war with unions. We are not at war with anyone. We are correcting inefficiencies. She nodded. Then we say, we remain confident that existing local structures are sufficient to address recent disruptions, and we will continue to support them with targeted resources where needed. He considered. Remove disruptions. Too harsh. Try concerns. She changed it. The stylus made a soft scratching sound on the slate's surface, though it did not need to. The manufacturer had added it to please human nerves. Recent concerns, she read. It makes the workers sound reasonable. That plays well. People believe themselves reasonable, Verdan said. They are easier to guide that way. He looked past her then, out toward the towers. His reflection hovered on the glass, a pale shape over the city. Do we have any fresh footage of Homefield? Some from last cycle, Lira said. Daylight over the main yard. Children running near a water tower. The dust is golden almost. Use that, he said. It will reassure the inner rings. They like their frontier with a little romance. She opened a media pane and cued the clip. She remembered the file. A boy with a scrap of cloth tied around his head, chasing a rolling drum, laughing. The water tower in this background had Verdan's crest on it, faded but clear. The boy's name was not in the metadata. The camera operator's was. A local contractor, now on a different world, according to personnel. Overlay the opening lines over that, Verdan said. Soft music. Nothing too triumphant. We are calm, competent, unshaken. She built the sequence in a few quick motions. Text, image, sound. They fell into place like pieces of a well-known machine. Her hands knew the pattern. Her mind, for a moment, did not. Unrest reports from the same world. A water allotment cut. A fight over parts in a yard. A supervisor's note about rising agitation. We could mention water infrastructure, she said. A brief reference. Investments in sustainable supply. It costs us nothing to say it. Verdan's mouth tightened by a fraction. We have already announced 3 such initiatives this year. The numbers do not lie. Consumption is within projected bands. The perception may lag, she said. A line could help. He studied her again. You are from a frontier world, are you not? Yes, she said. You know the type, he went on. They will always feel they are owed more. If we promise water today, tomorrow they will ask why their children cannot ride to the axis for free. We do not teach them to expect special attention. She kept her voice level. Then we phrase it as routine maintenance, nothing special, as part of our ongoing infrastructure commitments. He exhaled through his nose very softly. One line, no numbers, no dates. She added it. It sat there, small and neat, between larger promises. The alert bar at the bottom of her slate ticked on. Another anomaly appeared, this one from a core-adjacent route. It carried the proper tags. A scheduled test jump. It scrolled away. She wondered, briefly, who sat in that ship, watching the core stars flick past. Whether they believed these statements when they heard them in transit. Whether they cared. Read it all once, Verdan said, as the public will hear it. She straightened in her chair and let her voice settle into the calm, measured tone she used for internal briefs. As partners in stable trade across the Axis and frontier alike, she began, we remain committed to safeguarding livelihoods on worlds like Homefield, Trask Station, and the Outer Belt colonies. Recent concerns in certain locales are localized and under active review. We remain confident that existing local structures are sufficient to address these concerns, and we will continue to support them with targeted resources where needed. As part of our ongoing infrastructure commitments, we are advancing maintenance and upgrades to water and transport systems to ensure continued reliability for all communities under our care. She went on. The words were smooth. They did not catch in her throat. She had shaped them too carefully for that. When she finished, Verdan nodded once. Acceptable. Have media polish the visuals. Schedule release for the next core broadcast window. Yes, she said. He closed his display with a small gesture. The light on his hand faded. Keep an eye on Trask, he added. If the stoppage extends past 3 cycles, we may need a visible gesture. A visit, a new contract, something for the feeds. I'll prepare options, Lira said. And your anomaly? His gaze flicked to her slate. You tagged it. She did not let her hand twitch. For pattern tracking, she said. If more unregistered traces appear on similar vectors, it may indicate a new smuggling route. Early notice helps enforcement plan. He watched her for another long second, then gave a small, dismissive wave. Very well, that is your work. Just do not let ghosts distract you from real numbers. I won't, she said. He turned his chair back toward the window. The towers took him in again. For him, the frontier was a set of charts and lines, colored bars rising and falling, a convenient backdrop for words like stability and partnership. Lira rose, slate in hand. At the door, she paused and glanced once more at the small, grayed-out anomaly entry in her peripheral view. Unregistered FTL trace, frontier vector, low priority. She set a secondary flag on it in her private workspace. No alert, no change in status. Just a note, cross-check with Trask reports, monitor for repeats. Then she stepped out into the cooler light of the outer corridor, the door sealing softly behind her, and walked toward the media wing to teach the rest of the world how stable things were. Rian kept his hand on the side rail until his fingers stopped shaking. The little ship floated quiet now. No roar, no rattle. Just a low, uneven hum through the frame, and the soft hiss of the air system. His chest still felt tight from the climb. He uncurled his other hand from the armrest. His knuckles were white. He flexed them once, twice. You are in stable orbit, Kael said. His voice came from the speaker above the console and from the small, cracked display in front of Rian, where a faint blue icon pulsed. Velocity and altitude within safe margins. Good work. Rian let out a breath he had not meant to hold. Didn't do much, he said. His voice came out rough. Booster did it. You kept the nose within 3 degrees, Kael said. That mattered. Sela gave a short snort from the seat to his right. If you'd blacked out, we'd still be up here, she said, just in smaller pieces. He glanced over. Her desert robes were bunched awkwardly under the crash harness. Sweat had darkened the cloth at her throat. The amber lens of her cybernetic eye glowed faint in the dim cockpit. You all right? He asked. I've had worse rides, she said. She swallowed, then added, not many. Out the front viewport, Homefield hung large and close. It filled most of the view, a curved wall of tan and rust, broken by darker smears where wreck fields lay. The edge of the planet was sharp and bright, a thin blue line where the light caught the thin air. The sun, smaller than he expected, burned off to the side. He could not stop looking. That's all of it? He asked. Approximately 41% of the surface is in your current view, Kael said. But yes, That is your world. Rian pressed his palm against the cracked viewport. The glass was cold. Looks dead, he said. It is not dead, Kael said, but it is damaged. He saw the long, straight scar that cut across a continent. He had always heard stories about the equator line, but from the ground it was just a darker band on the horizon. From here it was a burn across the planet, a place where something huge had struck or fired. He thought of the village, the scrap pits, the old men telling stories in the shade. They were all somewhere down there, too small to see. Any sign of that patrol? Sela asked. Her voice had gone back to business. Negative, Kael said. Their climb vector did not intersect ours. I detect no active lock on this hull. Passive sensors only. So no one's shooting yet, she said. Good. Rian pulled his hand back from the viewport. The cold had numbed his fingertips. He rubbed them against his flight overalls. What now? He asked. Now we leave, Kael said. He turned his head toward the display. Leave how? He knew the word. FTL. Faster than light. People in town used it like a curse. You think you're FTL fast? But he had never thought about the thing itself. Short answer, Kael said. We will shift the ship into a different frame of reference. The drive will create a local distortion. We will move along a path that does not obey normal light speed limits. To you it will feel like a brief change in inertia, then nothing. So we don't go anywhere, Rian said, but we end up somewhere else. That is a fair description, Kael said. Sela made a low sound. I've ridden haulers that hit transit, she said. Feels like your stomach drops out and forgets to come back for a breath or two. You get used to it, mostly. Rian swallowed. His mouth had gone dry again. What if it doesn't work? Then we remain in orbit, Kael said, until life support fails or we are found. Comforting, Sela muttered. What if it half works? Rian asked. He was not sure why he kept going. Like the airline. Leaks. The drive will either establish a coherent field or it will not, Kael said. There is no half in that sense. The failure modes are different. What kind of different? Sela asked. Rapid hull shear, Kael said, or misalignment with the exit vector, which could place us in proximity to a large mass at unsafe velocity. A moon, for example, or a station. Rian stared at the blue icon. You could have lied, he said. I do not lie, Kael said. Sela blew out a breath between her teeth. All right, she said. No point waiting around for a patrol to get lucky. Where are we pointing this thing? Target is the mining station designated V9C, Kael said. A small schematic appeared on the flickering display. A sphere with a ring. Outer moon of a gas giant in Verdan-controlled space. Distance, 21.3 light-years. Relative jump time, approximately 1 hour subjective. Rian blinked. Light-years, he repeated. The word felt heavy in his mouth. We can do that in an hour? Yes, Kael said. With this drive, on this setting, it is not a long jump by historical standards. Feels long to me, Sela said. What's at this station again? Besides rock and tired men. Worker unrest, Kael said. Shortages, sabotage events, increased security deployments. It is a point where the system shows strain. So you want us to fly straight into Lord Whitehair's grip, she said. On purpose. We will not announce ourselves, Kael said. And the strain is an opportunity. For information. For allies. For you to see what his rule looks like off-world. Rian watched Homefield slide slowly in the viewport as the ship drifted. Can't see it fine enough from here? He asked. You know your own cage, Kael said. You do not yet know the others. Rian thought about the patrol craft lifting from the distant pad, the way its plume had looked like a second sunrise. He thought about the old battle scars on the planet, and the stories of ships that had once moved free. Show me what to do, he said. First, Kael said, we align the ship. Rian, take the stick. Yaw 3 degrees port, pitch up 5 degrees. I will mark the vector. A thin line appeared on the display. It wobbled as he put his hands on the controls. The ship responded slower than he expected, like it was moving through thick oil. Small thrusters puffed somewhere outside. A faint vibration through the frame. Easy, Sela said. We're not racing sand skiffs anymore. Hold, Kael said. Good. That heading keeps us clear of major masses on exit. Now arm the drive. Switch panel C, 3rd row, red cover. Rian reached up. His fingers found the small red cap. It was scratched and sticky. He flipped it up. Underneath, a stubby metal toggle waited. On your mark, Kael said. We will charge the field coils to 80%. The strain indicators will rise. That is expected. Expected by you, Sela said. She had her hands folded tight in her lap now. Her jaw was set. Ready? Kael asked. Rian nodded, then remembered Kael could not see that. Yeah, he said. Engage, Kael said. Rian pushed the toggle up. A deep tone sounded through the cabin. It was not loud, but it seemed to come from the bones of the ship. The hum under their feet shifted. It went from uneven to a steady climbing note. The lights in the cockpit dimmed, then steadied. On the display, a bar began to fill from left to right, changing from red to amber. Field coil charge at 10%, Kael said. 15, 20. Rian felt it in his teeth. A faint buzzing, like when he had held onto a bad power line by mistake as a child. Not painful, just wrong. Any spike on the leak we patched? Sela asked. Pressure remains within acceptable limits, Kael said. The air system is not directly tied to the drive. You are thinking of old tales. I'm thinking of every system we didn't have time to check twice, she said. 50%, Kael said. 60. The bar crept along. The hull gave a small groan, like it was settling. Rian stared at the numbers. His heartbeat tried to match the rising tone. He licked his lips. What if I let go, he asked. Of the toggle, Kael said. The charge would bleed back down. We would remain here. No, Rian said. Of this. Of the ship. Of all of it. What if we just stayed? Found some other way? There is no other way that keeps you free, Kael said. Not for long. You know that. He did know it. He saw the patrol craft again in his mind. The way its shadow had passed over the yard days ago. The way the overseer had looked at him when he had taken the wrong scrap. 75%, Kael said. Approaching target. Rian, when I say, you will pull the main lever by your right knee fully back. That engages the field and commits the jump. You must do it in one motion. No hesitation. Rian looked down. A thick lever stuck up from the floor by his leg. It was worn smooth where other hands had used it. Long ago. Someone had once wrapped a strip of cloth around the handle. The cloth was faded and stiff. His own hand looked small next to it. Sela shifted. He heard the faint creak of her harness. She closed her organic eye and touched 2 fingers of her left hand to her forehead, then to her chest, then to the side of the console. What's that? He asked. Old spacer's habit, she said without opening her eyes. You ask the dark to notice you and then forget you, long enough to get where you're going. 80%, Kael said. The tone in the hull had become a high, steady whine now. The air felt thicker. Rian's ears popped. Field stable. Minimal fluctuation. This is within tolerances. That's your favorite word, Sela muttered. Tolerances. Ready, Kael said. Rian, on my mark. 3, 2, 1, now. Rian wrapped his fingers around the lever. It felt colder than the viewport glass. He pulled. The lever resisted for a moment, then slid back with a heavy mechanical clunk that he felt in his arm. The whine in the hull jumped an octave, then cut out. For an instant, nothing happened. Then his stomach dropped. Not down, exactly. It felt like it went sideways or inside out. His vision blurred around the edges. The stars outside the viewport, bright and sharp a heartbeat before, smeared into thin white lines that stretched across the black. He tried to breathe and could not tell if air was moving. His hands were numb on the lever. The cockpit seemed to tilt, though he knew it was all relative now, no up or down. There was a taste in his mouth, metallic and sweet, like old batteries. Keep your eyes on something, Sela said. Her voice sounded far away, like she was at the bottom of a well. Don't chase it. Just look. He focused on the cracked corner of the viewport. On the way, the fracture line caught the smeared starlight. The feeling in his gut swelled, then snapped back. His ears popped again. The hum in the hull settled into a different note. Lower, slower. The star lines outside collapsed back into points. But they were not the same points. The pattern had changed. There was no Homefield now. No curved tan wall. Just a deep dark field and a scatter of cold lights. He sucked in a breath. It came in sharp and clean. His hands tingled as blood returned. Sela let out a low curse under her breath. Still here, she said. She opened her eye. It was wet at the corner. Didn't like that. Don't like that at all. Rian's heartbeat was still too fast. He forced his fingers to unclench from the lever. That's it? He asked. We did it? Yes, Kael said. Transition complete. We are in FTL frame. Relative distance to target decreasing. All primary systems remain functional. On the display, the bar that had filled was now a circle. A small marker moved slowly around it. Numbers ticked down beside it. Any strain? Sela asked. Drive temperature is elevated, but within limits, Kael said. One of the secondary coils shows increased resistance. We will need to inspect it after arrival. But for now, we are stable. Rian leaned back in his seat. The harness dug into his shoulders. He did not care. His whole body felt light, like he had just run flat out and then stopped. So we're between, he said. Not here, not there. We are on the way, Kael said. You have taken your first step off your world. There is no simple path back now. Rian looked out at the changed stars. Somewhere ahead, there was a moon that circled a giant planet he had never seen. On that moon, there was a station full of people he did not know, men and women pulling rock out of the dark for a man who owned their air. Good, he said. His voice surprised him. It sounded steady. I wasn't much good at simple paths anyway. Sela huffed a short laugh. You're better at falling into trouble, she said. He turned his head toward her. We'll get out of it, he said. She raised one eyebrow. That your plan? That's part of it, he said. Then we will need the rest, Kael said. For now, you should both drink water. Breathe. Let your bodies adjust. We have time before exit. I will monitor the drive. Rian unfastened one hand from the armrest long enough to reach down for the canteen clipped to his belt. His fingers fumbled on the latch. He got it free, took a long swallow. The water was warm and tasted of metal, but it helped. He passed it to Sela. She drank, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, and hooked the canteen back. Outside, the stars did not move, but he knew they were. He knew they were sliding past in some way he could not feel. The ship hummed around them, patched and tired, but holding. He closed his eyes for a moment. In the dark behind them, he still saw the curve of Homefield, the scars across it. Then that image slid away, replaced by a ring station he had never seen hanging over a cold moon. When he opened his eyes again, the cockpit was the same. The numbers on the display had ticked down a little more. Kael? He said. Yes. What's it like? Rian asked. Out there, past this next place, past all of them. There was a brief pause. Complicated, Kael said. Broken, beautiful in pieces. You will see it yourself. Rian nodded. He let his head rest back against the seat. The harness creaked. Then let's get to the first piece, he said.